Hello everybody, welcome to Dude with a Fork. My name is Ken. On today's episode of Ken Cook Stuff, I am going to make Mexican cornbread stuffing. This is a traditional Thanksgiving stuffing that we have in my family every single year, and I realize this video is a little bit late, but this actually makes a great side dish. So if you're looking for something different, something unusual, unique, this is the perfect side dish for any Christmas meal as well. Although at Thanksgiving, I do always put this into a turkey and have plenty of leftovers. So let's get started. All right, so let's look at the ingredients that we're going to need for this. First of all, we're going to need a double batch of cornbread. It can't be cornbread dressing without cornbread. And I buy the Quaker yellow cornmeal because it has a really good recipe on the back. And this recipe works just fine. You only need water, flour, egg, oil, and salt, and baking powder. So I'll include that recipe in the show notes as well. You need to make a double batch of this. I cook it up in a 9 by 13 inch pan. You're also going to need 3 stalks of celery. You're going to need an onion and this entire green pepper, and I chop those really finely. You're going to need about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic at a minimum. I usually start there and add more. You're going to need salt, and you're going to need cumin. I usually start off with a tablespoon of ground cumin, and of course you adjust that to what you like. Some people like a spicier dressing. I usually end up with 2, but 1 is a good place to start. And you are also going to need a pound of ground beef. Now I'm not actually going to cook this because when the holidays come around, I'll find something like this that's on sale, and I will cook 1 pound portions and then just freeze them. And I will take these out when I'm ready to make my dressing. And that just saves me a little bit of time down the road because I know all I've got to do is chop up some vegetables, make some cornbread, and we're good to go. I usually do try to make the cornbread a couple of days in advance. If you can't, you can always break it up and throw it on a baking sheet into a low oven for a couple of hours just to dry it out a bit, but that's all right. The other thing I haven't included here is chicken stock. Normally, if I'm going to stuff this into a turkey, I will take the giblets and boil those in some water, and I will use that to flavor the dressing with. Since we're not going into a turkey, I'm just going to use chicken stock. So I'm going to go chop some vegetables, and we'll be right back. All right, so here's the cornbread I made yesterday, day before, I forget. I'm going to save this piece of foil, by the way. Don't throw that out. You can see I took a little nibble out of the corner here because you have to. It's done when you put a toothpick in it and it comes out clean. But what I'm going to do now is just kind of go in and just try to break it up just a little bit. There we go, perfect. So this is going to lift right out of here. I'm going to put this into a bowl and break it up some more. And I'm using a nice, large, deep bowl. If you can see how deep that is, that's about 6 inches deep and 14 inches across. I got these at Sam's Club. It was a set of 3. So I'm just going to break this up into pieces here. If you've got kids, this is the task for them. So, come on, everybody in the pool. And I'm going to get all these little bits and pieces out of here. But I am actually going to cook the dressing. Since I'm not putting it into a turkey, I'm going to hang on to this pan because I'm going to put all the dressing back in there and cook it in there. So all I'm going to do is break this up a bit, and you know how much you want this broken up is entirely up to you. It all has these little crispy brown bits on the bottom, give it so much flavor. So at some point that is, I just go in here and start breaking things up with my hands. They're gonna, if there are any little dark corners that might not break up easily like that one, I want to make sure to break those up. But really the rest of it will also get broken up as we add ingredients and stir things up. So, but oh my gosh, this smells so good. I love cornbread. If you like cornbread, this would be a good dish for you to try. It's very different to traditional stuffings. And this is, I've also seen people make cornbread stuffing and they put sausage in here. And then you just have the flavor of the sausage. So it's not Mexican, but it is very tasty because, you know, if you use an Italian sausage, with cornbread, or you could do instead of the ground beef I'm going to add, you could actually use chorizo, which is really good. All right, so let me see. There's a big piece. Just gonna give it a little stir here just to make sure there aren't any big huge pieces still lying around like sharks in the water waiting to come up and grab me here. So okay, I'm satisfied with that. It's time to start putting things together. All right, so we have our cornbread broken up quite nicely. I'm just never ever satisfied with this because I just love cornbread. So I could just sit here and play with this way too long. So I have my ground beef, and I just thawed this in the microwave. I did it for 30 seconds and then did it for another 30 seconds. And as you can see, this is breaking up just fine. If I had planned this out better, I would have just taken that package and put it in the refrigerator last night. But I wasn't sure I was going to do this today. So anyway, we're going to go in with that. I'm going to add in all of our vegetables here. Now that I think about it, making this with chorizo would be really good. Maybe that's my next variation. So anyway, get all these pieces out. Waste not, want not, right? Especially these days with food being so expensive. Inflation is at like 8%, 7-8% they say, but honestly, food is like risen by half at least. So we'll give this a stir. And the only other things we're missing, let me double check. Yep, cumin and garlic. Now, of course, if you're going to put this into a chicken, and I actually was reading something, chicken does not taste like turkey, but some people have found it's easier just to roast a couple of chickens instead of a turkey. They cook more evenly because they're smaller. And believe me, my family used to do a 21-pound bird. And now that times are a little bit more uncertain and money's a little bit tighter, we've said, well, we just won't have as many leftovers and we'll just do a 12-pound bird. And they cook up so much more evenly. It's amazing. So believe it or not, I'm out of cumin. So this jar here, that's probably a tablespoon and a half. So I know I like a lot of cumin. That seems like a lot, doesn't it? It's not for me. Again, the spicing on this is to taste. All right. So, and I'm actually just going to use granulated garlic for now because that's about a tablespoon there. And I know I want probably half a tablespoon more. And that doesn't look like a lot because you can't really see it against the cornbread as well. But I know I like things a little bit spicier than most people do. So you adjust the seasonings. Recipes are great to have, but if you don't like a recipe, if you're like, well, it'd be really good except it's too salty, use less salt. Or it's really good but there's not enough salt in it, you can add something else with salt, like seasoned salt, or just add more salt. Anyway, so that looks good. And speaking of salt, I do need to add salt because really the only salt in here is going to come from the chicken broth and the what salt is in the cornbread. I didn't salt the ground beef when I cooked it. I could have. I know it seems like I'm adding a lot of salt here, but this is a pretty big batch. Okay, and I'm not a big fan of salt grinders because it's salt. It doesn't go stale. And I put pink Himalayan salt in here. Really, I don't know what people are impressed about. It tastes like salt. I don't go, I'm getting a whiff of the Himalayas. It just doesn't happen for me. So anyway, it's salt. Salt is salt. So, but it's what they had at the store that I could stick back in there, and it does grind really fine, which is nice for things like popcorn. So that is one advantage to the salt grinder. Okay, now I'm going to stir up my broth here that I made. I've got 2 cups of broth. I'm not going to add it all at once because it really does depend on how dried out that cornbread has become. So there is 1 cup. And we'll get that stirred. And I have found that the secret to making a really, really good stuffing is to stir it really, really well, because you're using, it's such a huge amount of stuff. You really got to make sure that things are stirred up really, really well. Because you could taste, if it's not stirred up well, you could taste one part of it and say, oh, well, that's got plenty of salt, but the rest of it doesn't. So, yeah, I'm really wishing I had more cumin. Come on, last little bits, get out of there. There we go. All right, well, I'll have to live with it. You know, I'm going to go to the store and buy more cumin, and I can always sprinkle a little bit on at the table. But still. So, this is looking good with about 1 cup of the corn broth, of the chicken broth. So let me just get a little taste here and see how it's kind of holding together. That tells me, oops, I'm off camera here. See how it's kind of holding together? That tells me it's moist enough. Yep. Definitely needs more cumin. For my taste. And I think the amount of salt is just perfect. Okay, so here's the challenge: to get this back into here without making a huge mess. And inevitably, you're going to make a little bit of a mess. And a little bit of mess is okay. I just don't want to drop this all over the floor. Although, you know, you have the 5-second rule, and thanks to inflation, it's now like the 6.3-second rule. No, that's not true. That's not true. It's a joke. Don't eat food off the floor. That's why we have pets. All right. 5-second rule does not apply to pets. And will I be lucky? Let's see what I'm dealing with over here. All right. I think that is looking pretty good. Oops. Lost a few little pieces there on the table. All right. In with the rest of it. There. Well, I just shot some across the table. It had to happen. Fortunately, it happened out of the range of the camera. So, okay, there we go. If you do not have big bowls like this for the holidays, try to find some. The biggest frustration for me always if I'm cooking at somebody else's house is they're like, you know, I need a bowl to mix something up in, and they hand me a soup bowl. And I'm like, you know, I can do this. But it would really be a lot easier in a bigger bowl. You always need a bigger bowl than you think. Okay. So that looks really good. Come on, get off there. Everybody into the pool, remember? Okay. All right. So I am going to cover this with that piece of foil we had. This is going to go into a 350-degree oven. I'm going to check it after half an hour, and if it's drying out, I'll add some more of the chicken stock, and then after an hour, I'll pull the foil off, let the top get a little bit crispy. We'll see you then. All right, and so this is what it looks like. It's been in a 350-degree oven for an hour and a half. About halfway through, I did go through and add the other cup of chicken broth. It looked like it was drying out a little bit. So it's absolutely gorgeous. It smells amazing. And I'm going to get a little here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's moist. It's tender. Oh gosh, I did get enough cumin in it. Well, it smells very cumin-y. I love the little crunchy bits around the edge. If you cook it in the bird, of course, you don't get as much of that crunchy bit, but we're just going to have a little taste here. That is so good. Those vegetables are cooked tender, but they're not mushy. Wow, the flavor is just amazing. Wow, I really do encourage you to make this. I have an entire pan here to eat up now, so I will definitely be enjoying this. And by the way, this is often what I have for breakfast when I have it for leftovers, so it's wonderful. So good. Bon appetit. And that's it, folks. This dressing is really easy to put together once you've got the cornbread made. You can do all the steps ahead of time. I always do. I bake the cornbread ahead of time. I chop the vegetables ahead of time. I cook the ground beef ahead of time. The day I'm making a turkey and stuffing this in the turkey, I'm just throwing things together. It's really simple if you make everything ahead of time. So I suggest you try it. If you like it, if you let me know. If you don't like it, let me know that too. Leave a comment down below. As always, if you like this channel, please go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notifications of when I release new videos. I am going to try this with chorizo in it, I think. That's going to be my variation, and I will report on that later. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Stay safe, stay sane, eat great food, and power to the proletariat. We'll see you next time.